Welcome to another episode of Make More Money Now show with Gerry Black, the incredible copywriter and sales pro, and Patti Pokorchak, another not copywriter, MBA in marketing and small biz sales coach. And today our format's changing a little bit from the previous episodes. So we're making it a bit more interactive. I've got the top 3 questions that I bet most of you entrepreneurs have when it comes to prospecting. And so Gerry and I are going to take all our decades and decades of experience, which makes us very wise.
And decades.
And decades wise and weird on this side of the camera. And give you the benefit of what we see. For example, the first question is, what happens when an entrepreneur falls down on their prospecting for new clients? Just to set the scene, I hear this from my clients all the time, especially when they're solopreneurs or just busy business owners, is that they're so busy delivering today's sales that they don't look at the future. Is that, we call it the feast or famine, the roller coaster ride, right, Gerry?
Yeah. You're busy. And then all of a sudden when you stop being busy, you look up and, what am I going to do now?
Exactly. So it's like, well, what do you do? Like, I mean, how do you get over this? Because, it's yes, you're committed to delivering the best experience for your current client or clients, but then you have to always, my mantra is always be prospecting, is never, ever stop doing that. Some of the outcomes are, you look at when you talk about a sales pipeline, like it's just, when you meet people, only like 1 in 20 are ready to buy today. So you got to nurture those other leads because half of them are potential clients. But if you don't nurture them, all of a sudden it's like, oh, Gerry, you haven't heard from me in 3 months, but would you like to buy now? Like that doesn't work, right?
Not natural.
Yeah. One thing that pops up for entrepreneurs when they go, oh my God, I've got no clients, there's something called a JOB, a job starts looking inviting. They start applying for jobs, which is, horrendous. Don't do that, right? Especially if you're got a family and lots of responsibilities, i.e. debt. There's anxiety, you're irritable, you're full of stress. And if you're full of stress, really hard to relax and be nice to potential clients, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So sorry, Gerry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, when you are, when you're stressed out, clients like prospects can really pick up on that. So if you are feeling a lot of pressure because you've let the ball drop on your prospecting efforts, that comes through when you're talking to people, whether it's in person or they sense that. There's a sense of desperation because you haven't been doing the prospecting. What happens is there is some desperation, right? You've got to get momentum going. I've felt it the odd time. I think it was 40 years ago, but I have felt it from time to time.
I remember when I came back to Canada and it was the start of the fiscal year and I was given a multi-million-dollar target with a new boss to the new company, like a startup basically, and new boss, new territory, new country for me because I'd been in Europe for 9 years. Talk about stress. Oh, and I also bought a new house, and then I added a new boyfriend to the mix, and I got another dog just because I was working so much and I felt bad. Talk about stress. It was, so I literally had sticky notes going, relax, breathe, because as you say, enthusiasm sells. Your energy is contagious. So if you're enthusiastic and you love what you're doing and you can help that person, that transfers over. But also the same desperation of, I need this order, like please buy, even if those aren't the words. There's nothing worse than you always have to just go, okay, this will work out. If you talk to enough people in the right attitude and the right frame of mind, it will happen. But it's just being consistent in sales. I think consistent and persistent have got to be your buzzwords, and always be prospecting, always do the outreach. So the number 2 question, what are the top...
Just before we go on, I want to jump in with one thing. I remember I was famous in my own mind for doing this. I used to get on the phone and call, and the minute, it didn't matter if it was 2 calls in or 10 calls in, the minute I had a modicum of what I would call success, I stopped.
Oh
I,
no.
I don't know what it was. Like, it was almost like, oh, okay, now this, you can take your foot off the gas and everything like that. I don't know why I did it. And I'm not kidding you. It
Yeah.
used to happen sometimes after 2 or 3 calls, I'd get one thing that I perceived to be some kind of positive feedback. I'd go, boy, that wasn't so hard. Now, 90% of the people would say it wasn't so hard, keep doing it. I took my foot off the gas and stopped doing it. And that was it for the day. I don't know. I just, it was a funny little phenomenon.
You'd be surprised. It's actually 90% take their foot off the gas. It's
Wow.
only the 10%ers that keep on going. You're only as good as your last sale. And that's the sign of a true sales professional, is that when you get the big contract, do you put your feet up on the desk and rest on your laurels, or do you get back on the phone and just keep going? So you're only as good as your last sale.
So clearly, I'm still working toward being a professional. The other thing I found too, when I used to prospect like a lot in the early days, I had a couple of sales positions. Like, you're always selling when you're in business for yourself, but I had a couple of sales positions. And when I get on the phone, I found after about 10 calls, you start to develop some confidence. And you get a bit of a rhythm going and whatnot. You find out it's really not that big a deal, especially if you do get a little bit of success along the way or some interest and whatnot. So it really is a kind of an energy thing and a momentum thing, I always found.
That's right. It's right. I mean, it's like I'm telling my clients now that it's like the first 100 calls are difficult, and then you've got your spiel down. But it takes time to get that
Yeah.
spiel going. And
Yeah.
that's why I always say is that don't start with your A list of clients or prospects. Is start with the ones you can practice on, because it takes a while to get that the marbles out of your mouth, right? Until it kind of flows a little. You have to say it a few times. That's why I think it's a crime if you don't practice and role play before you actually, pick up the phone and talk to clients.
Yeah.
And even if it's just a friend or a partner or a trusted colleague, just practice it a few times, because it only gets better with practice. There is no shortcut, right? So it's just like it's like one of the I guess the rules for entrepreneurship is always be prospecting, so you don't go into this roller coaster ride. But the thing is, what I found is that you and I, we've both had professional sales experience. We know what it's like to have a quota and go in every day, and that's
Sure.
all we do is sell, sell, sell. But when I tell my clients, okay, so what you have to do is you want to target this market, then just go and, target them. And then I let them go sometimes, and like, they don't even know where to start,
Yeah.
So what are the top issues that entrepreneurs have in prospecting is our second question. And I think it's like, you and I know what it looks like. You got to find your target market. You got to figure out, what's the ROI for that market. What are your case studies, your proven examples? What I call my brag sheet of, who else I've worked with and what results I got, so that I have that ammunition that comes out. I always say, have your sound bites ready. Is that, you've worked with clients on marketing campaigns and it produced X results. I've helped people get $20,000 more just on one contract. That's the kind of sound bites ROI sound bites I'm talking about. But most entrepreneurs go, okay, that sounds really good. Go target tech companies, but like, what does that really mean? They don't know that they have to schedule the time and make it a priority. Even if it means getting up earlier. Like if you're busy delivering training from 9 till 4, as well, how can you spend half an hour, maybe it's even in the parking lot, that before you start your training, that you're actually doing a few calls, or after the training. Usually morning is better than evening, because you're going to be dead by the end of 4 o'clock. But what are the issues you find with entrepreneurs in prospecting?
Well, I think a lot of them don't understand the value of scheduling the time, as you're saying, because it really is an important part of selling. I mean, it's a critical part of selling to keep the leads coming in. And so it should be scheduled like anything else. It's not something you do just on a whim, or you have to get it into your head that you always have to do it.
Yeah.
So like anything else, it's like brushing your teeth or eating breakfast or, whatever you do as a routine,
Yeah.
you should schedule in. I mean, there will be some days when you can't prospect in the morning, but when you know that you are going to be prospecting from 8:30 to 10:30 or whatever it happens to be, then you prepare yourself for that. And after 3 or 4 days, it becomes part of your selling process. And so it's not like you really want to try and get it to be a consistent activity. So that's a big part of it for me, was always to make time for it.
That's right. And I think it's not just the sales process, it's the business process, right? And I like your analogy of brushing your teeth. Like, I mean, first thing, after you finish eating in the morning, your breakfast, you have your coffee, you brush your teeth. And just think of prospecting as, brushing the teeth of your business, basically. It's just something that you do, because the dental bills, if you don't, is really horrendous. It's really horrible. It's really horrible. But it's like Mark Twain said is, eat your frog first, because if you eat a frog first thing in the morning, nothing worse can happen to you.
Yeah.
And if you fear it, it's just I'll give you an example. Is I used to try and get to the gym for a class at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock. And it was so easy and now I do it first thing in the morning. And it's done. I eat my frog.
And it's it's coming, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's coming and you're prepared for it.
That's right. And once it's done, then I feel great for the rest of the day. It is actually an excellent way to get the energy and boost and get the brain cells going. I find when I'm cooling down, doing the stretches, it's kind of a meditative. I can start planning my day. Right? When I'm on my stationary bike, it's like, okay, so what's today? What am I going to do? What am I planning? And it's just, you can actually do two things at once, because it's, pretty mindless being on that bike. But it's just like, okay, let's figure out, okay, I'm going to do that. Who am I going to target? How many calls am I going to make? Set some goals. And the other thing is, if you're busy one day, you're supposed to make your 10 calls. Well, then that means tomorrow you're making 20, right? Just you can do a do-over, right? You can accrue them.
Sure,
so
absolutely.
Just as long as by the end of the week you're not trying to do 50 on one day, okay?
Yeah.
Like that's a little hard to do, but I guess what I find most clients, or when they come to me, is that I don't want to be salesy. What do you say about that? I mean.
Well, I think that really gets back to having an understanding of what sales is all about. And if you kind of flip it and think of it, and you and I have talked about this throughout the different programs, that you are a problem solver. And you almost have to take salesy and forget about sales, forget about salesy. Think of yourself as a problem solver. You're trying to find people that have a problem you're an expert at solving.
Yeah.
And so if you kind of forget that, it will come through in, you won't be salesy, because you're not trying to pitch them something. You're trying to find out something. And that is whether or not the product or service you offer is going to fit in. I think there's another thing. I made a point about this the other day. I think a lot of people, they feel salesy because they haven't really sat down and developed a true belief in their product or service. So they haven't really bought into the value it delivers. So they feel, I've heard this term passed around a bit, the imposter syndrome,
Right.
where you kind of feel like you're in the prospect's home or on their phone or something, and you're talking about something, you're kind of trying to trick them into it. Not literally, but you just don't believe in your product, because once you believe in your product or service, as we often say, it's really your job to get in front of as many people that may need it as possible and tell them you can help them.
Right. That's interesting. I mean, that's got to do a lot with self-esteem issues, which we're not qualified to really deal with, I guess.
Well, I can speak for myself. You're absolutely right there.
I've had enough therapy. I could pretend to be one, but I certainly suffered from imposter syndrome. But I always had a confident facade. I'm not a true believer of the fake it till you make it, but like your body or your mind doesn't know the difference between anxiety and excitement, and so I always chose excitement. And what for me worked in that case was focusing on the other person and stop, actually people that are shy and anxious, really they're obsessed about themselves. And once you stop obsessing about yourself and focus on how can I help this person and
Yeah.
be curious about that person, all of a sudden I became irrelevant. I got over my shyness because
Yeah.
I was more curious about the other person and how could I help. And I was coaching some clients last week, and it was just like, oh, I get to a point in the conversation, and the lady said, I feel salesy. It's like, sales is service. Sales is service. But just do that reframe in your mind that being in sales is being of service. I love you're a problem solver. There to solve problems for money. And if after
Which you're entitled to. If you
yeah.
are solving problems, people will happily pay to have you solve the problem. My daughter, she runs a dog training business, and just imagine if you're a dog owner and the problem that you have is walking along the street. Every dog your dog sees immediately starts reacting negatively, whether it barks or pulls or whatever. But if someone came along and said, hey, I can solve that problem for you, you're going to listen. Now, in the end, maybe you're not willing to pay for it, whatever, but at the same time, it's a problem looking for a solution. And that's who you are when you call up people that you've properly qualified and you think you can help them if they have a need. That's basically what you're doing there. You'll be welcome in if you can solve a problem they're experiencing.
Right. People are grateful for that, and that's why it's always important to talk about how you solve the problem and what you've done for similar problems and people in the past. And then they go, so let's get started. Just bill me. Like, the price really isn't an objection for the majority, because they just want the problem solved. And there's an article in today's newspaper about there's dog lawyers, right? Because there's so many, destructive dog owner, or like when dogs have to be muzzled, whatever, that in public. And so there's lawyers now so I mean, there's a lot of future in there's going to be a huge future for dog training once people are back at work, and the problem dogs, so that's a really good, so really, again, the one thing is, top issues entrepreneurs, they fall down on the follow-up. They don't call and follow up. They think they're interrupting. And as you say, is that I always say people buy on their timeline, not yours. So that's why you just have to keep reminding that you're there, because you might be initially number 10 on their priority list, then you move up over the months. So by month 10, you're near the top of their priority list. You just got to be top of mind, because the next person that phones them and says, hey, I've got a dog training business. How's your dog doing? Oh, I'm back at work and it's being totally destructive. They're going to get the business, right? It's being top of mind, basically. And my last point here is practicing on prospective clients is a crime. That's why you need to do some kind of role playing. Get the marbles out of your mouth. Get the spiel down, because there is, you got to prep a few questions to know if they're slightly interested in what you're doing, to make sure they're worth spending more time on. And it just takes practice to do that. So, and finally,
and to that point, just even once you say the words, once you start practicing your questions, you can smooth them out, because sometimes what looks good on paper and then you say it sounds odd. And that's where you get into when you're using scripts, especially scripts you didn't write, and you're finding that you're starting to sound like some robot, but you're not a robot, but you might as well be a robot, because it's not natural. It has to fit you and your personality, and so practicing it is, that's
it's really important.
It's where you need to be.
And it reminds me, even if something happens and you don't, your trusted buddy advisor, it can't make it, hop onto Zoom or any platform where you can record yourself. Is then just say your opening script, say your opening words. Just pretend what questions they would ask you. So, Gerry, or Patti, what do you do? And then you just say it, and then watch the tape. people don't review themselves enough. You know, when you're a full-time sales professional, you get
Sure.
reviewed, you get trained. It's much more rigorous, you know, because entrepreneurs are their own bosses, which means they don't really get a lot of feedback.
Right.
And that's why they need coaches such as ourselves, where we can say, hey, you know, there's a better way to do that. You know, let's role play that, you know, and it gets, again, the marbles out of the mouth. Finally, the third thing, what can an entrepreneur do to avoid the roller coaster? You know, what would your top be?
Well, I think we talked about scheduling time daily and whatnot. I wrote something down here. Again, understanding there's no one way to prospect. There are certain strategies you can employ, but you have to find your way. And you need to develop a system. And what works for salesperson A or entrepreneur B may not be for you. And this is where your personality comes in. This is where your comfort level comes in. You need to follow the basics that are going to produce results. So you have to have a handle on that. But the way you deliver it, or the way you build your prospects and strategy, really has to be a personal thing, I find.
Yeah, yeah, that's really really important point, because the other thing is that the person you're prospecting to, they're different, right? So the outreach for prospect A might be attractive to them, but then B, it falls flat. That's just not everybody likes the color purple, right? It's just, that's the way it is. You just got to try different ways. And that actually leads into my thing, which is, I call it ditch the pitch, is have 5 different unique pitches with some results and outcomes to make it appealing. So I call it now the triple combo, which is that, you know, whether you email first or voicemail, or like call first, voicemail, email, but always do what I call the triple combo, which is like call them, leave a voicemail that's impactful, and you just say, hey, if you're interested, I'm sending you an email, read that and respond to that. And then people are like, okay. And then if you don't hear back from them, then the third one is stalk them nicely on social media. You know, whatever platform they're on, whether it's Instagram or Facebook, or mainly B2B is LinkedIn, follow their public posts. You can follow them without connecting, and just engage with them to show off your expertise and to say, hey, that's a really interesting point, but have you considered this? And that shows your expertise. When they hear you 3 times in one day, it's like, okay, well, they might check out your profile. You know, so that's the whole thing, is have 5 different ways. So if you haven't heard from them the first week, is the next week, you give them a new different, you know, business statement or positioning statement of like, you know, companies like yours have found working with us get this kind of response. Interested? Just say yes, you know? And again, what's most important is having some kind of customer relationship management system, even a spreadsheet to keep track. But once you've got 100 or 200 prospects, it's really hard. You really need that kind of system to do that.
And a lot of those systems don't cost an awful lot of money, right, Patty? You can get some, you know, entry level type things. Like if you're managing tens of thousands, that's one thing.
Yeah.
But you're off, you know, when you're trying to manage 1 to 500 to 1,000 contacts, you know, there's off the shelf software that you can buy that will help you do that for a pretty reasonable amount of time. And the time you save, of course, and the organization that it gives you is priceless.
Yeah. And that's why, you know, have 5, you know, rehearse your 5 different ways of following up, so it becomes automatic. And then when you're doing your notes update, that you call this, you know, prospect 2,500, is that you go voicemail 1 this week, voicemail 2 next week. So you don't have to just type in everything that you say. So it becomes a lot faster to keep track of what you did for who at what time. And that's the whole thing with prospecting, is it's a rhythm. That's the sales process and the discipline of, you know, you just go through this and eventually it's going to pan out, or they're going to say, hey, I'm not interested. Never will be interested, so just take me off your list, and that's fine, you know. Again, you know, the thing is practice with a professional, get some professional feedback of how to be more effective. It's the only way to get better. And the last thing is, don't give up too soon. And you know, this day and age, it takes anywhere from 5, 10, 20 touches. So again, you know, if you're doing the voicemail email combo, that's just 2 touches, right? So just You can do that 10 times without being invasive over the next, 3 to 6 months, of course. So just do it,
On those, just a word on those follow-ups. I find that the people that have the most success with me, whether I buy or not, is it depends on what I need, but are people that appear and follow up as real people. So they're conversational. They're not, I mean, you can read a sales pitch a mile away. When somebody asked, and I think you alluded to this, Patti, a couple of weeks ago, when somebody starts off, how are you? Like, I mean, you almost, you like, if you are the one that wrote that, you clearly have way too much money and you don't need any more, or you're planning not to stay in the selling profession, because that is the kiss of death.
I know.
A phone call, or how's your family? And like, it's just, I mean, well, we've heard it, and we've seen it, and I'll get people that will send me SEO, like, the
SEO websites, yes.
SEO websites, or hey, I'm a graphic designer, and that first line is like, hi, my name is so and so. Well, that's important to me. That's the very first thing I want. I wanted to know the name of the person whose email I'm going to put in the trash bin, like, right now,
without reading anything else.
Anything else.
I know. I when I teach at university entrepreneurial sales, and I get that from my students all the time. So I don't know if that's the way they were taught how to introduce yourself. But in the digital age, that's what signatures are for, right? If I care about your name, I'll get to it when it's important. When I get to the, okay, I want to talk to this person, I mean, don't forget, I've already seen your name in the from section, so I don't need to see it again, because I don't care. I don't care about you until you show you care about me. So tell me you can help me, and then you've got my interest, I got recently approached by a Leader Jam, which is this online coach platform. And I'm on a number of these online coach platforms, and they've brought me in this much revenue. And I was, we had a call set up, a month later, and it's just like, I was going to cancel. It's like, how much money do they want from me? Anyways, they want, it's a revenue share, no money up front. And I was like, okay, this cold calls can work, even selling to a sales coach. So you never know. I remember one of my bosses, the one thing I got from one boss was, return every call, because you never know what it might be, because you might assume, that's my competition, which I once got a call from my competitor, because he didn't know I was running a barcode seminar, and he didn't know I was part of this company, and it was awkward, very awkward.
One of the things I was just thinking about as you were talking there was the when you get pitched, you being the entrepreneur, pay attention to what works on you, like what gets your attention. If somebody sends you an email or leaves you a voicemail, because I think you could pretty quickly figure out what isn't going to work, and we've just been over a couple, but there might be a couple of things that pique your curiosity, and don't be afraid to build that into your prospecting efforts and the approach that you use, so you can find clues, both plus and minus, mostly minus, but out there, like, if you pay attention, which I know, Patti, you are a big supporter of paying attention, and be a student. Right?
I mean, that's part of the entrepreneurship, is always looking, and the sales professionals, like, always looking for opportunities, whether, like you say, a joint venture, or you just never know what new tool has come around or what else is going on. I either be a good example or a bad warning, right? I mean, it's like,
absolutely.
It is. But anyways, that's today's episode, all about prospecting. You're there to help solve a problem, according to Gerry, and stop that roller coaster. So make prospecting a priority, schedule it in. It's like brushing your teeth, do it daily or twice a day.
Perfect.
That's our show. Bye.